Hi guys, welcome to Truthbomb Thursday. I've decided to call it that. There's a reason I'm calling this Truthbomb Thursday, and that reason is I am really sick of all the lies that we're told about food and dieting and our bodies and all the things that we encounter growing up. Things are passed down from generation to generation. This is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And the dieting industry reinforces a lot of the untruths that we're told. And I am here every Thursday now giving you Truth Bomb Thursday, right? And today's Truth Bomb is literally around food diversion, I'm calling it. And if that doesn't mean anything to you right now, don't worry, I'm going to explain. But literally, just before I do, I want to explain who I am and what I do. Okay, so I am a couple of things. I'm a weight loss coach, right? I help women lose weight permanently, not lose it while you're on the diet and then put it back on again. I help women lose weight permanently, and I'll tell you how I do that. I do it through balancing your hormones, okay? And under balancing your hormones comes, nutrition, of course, right? Really important for balancing our hormones. Eating, the right foods. The reason it's important to balance our hormones, by the way, is because they're in charge of whether we store or burn fat, okay? So on that kind of more superficial or weight loss level, balancing our hormones is important, because if you don't, then you're never going to be able to lose weight and keep it off, because your body will keep holding on to fat. So we look at nutrition. We get that right. We look at also stress, really important. Okay, so obviously stress. When I talk about stress, I'm talking about the stress hormone cortisol. Right? And that actually, if there's too much of that present in our body, it knocks all the other hormones out of balance, and it also causes us to hold on to fat. So if you're really stressed, then you could be like holding on to or gaining weight as a result, and that's why. Okay, then it's about hydration, also really important. If our cells and our hormones are not hydrated enough, then again, they will not they won't perform efficiently, and you won't burn fat effectively. Sleep is the other one, right? Sleep, oh my gosh. If you knew how big an effect sleep had on your hormones, I mean, obviously the sleep hormone is melatonin, but there's so much more to learn about that, and I'm not going into that today, but I just know that sleep's really important. And if you're not getting enough sleep, that can have a knock-on effect on all the other hormones. So insulin's the big one, the fat-burning hormone, and I really focus on that when I first start working with people and getting that into balance. And then we have ghrelin and leptin are the other two, our hunger hormone, the one that tells us we're hungry, and then the one that tells us we've had enough. So that, in a nutshell, is the hormone balancing side of things. I forgot to mention the quality of food that you eat, yeah? And I'm not saying you should always eat organic, but what I do say is stop eating processed foods, okay? So it's very simple the way I work on the hormone side. I have those kind of 5 check boxes, and we go through them. We focus on insulin, ghrelin and leptin, getting those as balanced as possible, in line with our stress, our hydration, our nutrition, and the quality of food we're eating, and the sleep that we're getting. So that's the first area that I work on with my clients. It's really important, okay? So that's Truth Bomb number 1 is today, but it's not the Truth Bomb I'm saying today, but it's another Truth Bomb, is that we need to focus on hormones and forget about things like calories. Calories is one piece of information that our hormones need, but they need so much more in order to perform optimally and burn fat optimally. So that's the first kind of a mindset shift for most of my clients, because we're used to counting calories. So that is another Truth Bomb. Maybe I'll do that another day. But literally, counting calories doesn't matter. All that matters is your hormones are balanced, and that in turn helps you feel much better. Your overall health and well-being, right? So hormones is the first thing. The second thing is emotions, right? So most people think that when you go on a diet, which I don't advocate ever, because I hate diets. Dieting is about restriction and deprivation. It's restricting food to lose weight, to get thinner. And I don't like any form of restriction. It's not it's not healthy, it's not good for us, and it doesn't actually, it affects our hormones adversely, right? So that's the first thing. We don't want to be restricting in any way. So diet, always say diet in inverted commas, because that's what we've been told to do, right? Is kind of restrict food and do more exercise, and that's the only way to lose weight. And it's not. It's about balancing our hormones. It's about working on the emotional side of things, because if you are like me, like I was, in a cycle of losing and regaining weight, yo-yoing up and down, and know that your moods also go up and down. When you're losing weight, if the scales are going down, your mood's going up. When the scale is going up, your mood's going down, and hence the yo-yo cycle. And this is what I'm going to delve into a bit more today. Last week, I focused on guilt around food, and that is guilt around food is huge, right? It's huge. And it keeps us stuck, like literally keeps us stuck in that cycle. And I'm going to explain the cycle in a moment. And it's basically the yo-yo cycle. And that's what I was stuck in for 20 years. 20 years I was stuck in. So I'm going to describe my cycle, which is pretty typical, so you probably relate. And then I'm going to really tell you why we divert with food, and how to stop, okay? Because this is the truth bomb for today, right? The truth is, it's not what you're eating. It's not, it's not that there's something wrong with you. You can't stick to something. The problem is that you are eating, you're emotionally eating, right? And that is the single thing that keeps you either not getting to your goal or losing weight and putting it back on again. Okay, so that is, emotional eating is eating when not hungry, right? If you're not eating for hunger, you're eating for an emotional reason, right? So it's very simple when you think about it like that. So if you can kind of look inwards and think, do I eat when I'm not hungry, right? Ask yourself that question. Post in the chat right now. If you eat when you're not hungry, post in the chat, divert. Post divert in the chat, okay? And say, honestly, I eat when I'm not hungry quite a lot. I used to eat when I wasn't hungry all the time. I used to literally snack all day long. I was a grazer, and I used to graze on stuff, and I never actually got hungry. So therefore, my ghrelin hormone was totally overridden all the time, because that's the one that tells me when I'm hungry. And because I wasn't really hungry ever, because I was grazing all day long, and then it came to mealtime, and it's lunchtime, so that habit of lunchtime kicks in, and you kind of off you go to the sandwich shop or whatever and buy your sandwich. But I literally, so I was just eating when I wasn't hungry all the time. So if that's you, or you can relate to that in any way, you may be also somebody that overeats every meal. So you don't stop when you're hungry. You don't stop when you're full, right? So that's another form of emotional eating, right? You're eating when not hungry. You're carrying on eating even though you know that you physically had enough, okay? And that is emotional, like 100%. So there are lots of other areas of emotional eating that I talk about, and I really do go into this in my programs. Obviously, it's really, really important. First of all, what I do with my clients is I get the hormones right, the hormone stuff right. We look at those things that I discussed at the beginning, including nutrition, get that right. And then we address the emotions around it. And this is what makes it permanent. Because when you can address your guilt or your frustration or your anger at yourself, or, maybe it's something else that you emotionally eat over, perhaps it's when you're stressed or overwhelmed. That was a big one for me. I remember whenever I felt overwhelmed, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just go to the cupboard and start eating. And then, so there's lots of emotions. It could be any emotion. It could be when you're excited. It doesn't have to be a negative emotion, right? You have the habit. Diverting when eating is the habit of going to get food when you are not hungry, for an emotion, because you are eating because you're feeling a certain emotion, right? Okay, I'll explain the cycle that I was in for 20 years. It kind of changes a little bit for most people. It did for me as well, but you can really sort of identify it when you think about, you don't just, when you're beating yourself up for overeating, and saying, oh, I'm useless, I can't stick to this. And when you're doing that, you really do just focus in on the food, and you think, oh, I can't resist this and I can't resist that, and it's my fault, and I just can't stop myself. But actually, what's driving it is the emotions. It's not the fact that you're useless and can't stick to anything. It's the emotions that are driving it. So that's what we have to address. So that's what most diet plans ignore. 99% of diet plans ignore. How often do you hear this in, you don't go to Slimming World and they tell you to monitor your emotions, do they? No, they don't. They just tell you what to do with the food. You don't go on the keto diet and then they say, oh, it's not like kind of a section about emotions. And because that is essentially what's happening. You are, oh yeah, I'm going to stick to this diet, and maybe you will do for a week, and then you have a shitty day, and then you don't feel like sticking to it. So what do you do then, Mr. Slimming World and Mr. Keto, or whoever you're following? Like, what do you do then? There's no kind of rules for that, and that is what I deal with. Yeah, we get the nutrition right, we get the hormones balanced, and then so that the body is burning fat, and then we address the emotional side of things, right? So let me describe the cycle that I was in, right, for 20 years. So I used to binge eat and then restrict food heavily. So I would literally I had certain things that I used to eat lots of. Like cereal was my thing. I don't know why, but I think it was just because it was easy, it was sweet, and I could just keep filling my bowl up very easily, right? So that was me. But other people, it's other things. It's crisps, it's wine and chips, or whatever it is, or popcorn sometimes, or just chocolate, or whatever it is for you. You know what it is for you, right? For me, it was cereal. And what I would do, when I was having a down night, when I was feeling out of control, and actually you're not out of control. What actually is happening is you are unconscious. You're emotionally unconscious. Yeah. So I call it unconsciousness. When you start to do that, so I would go to the cupboard, get the cereal out, start pouring a bowl of cereal, get the milk, and I'd always put artificial sweetener on top as well, because I thought I was being good then, and then psychologically I thought that was better than having sugar, but actually it's not. But that's another story. That actually affects your hormones as well. Artificial sweetener, it affects your insulin. The insulin in your bloodstream as well, so just the same as sugar does. So forget that, by the way. That's another tip for today. Forget artificial sweeteners, because they're treated the same as sugar in your body, right? So there I would be with my bowl of cereal, munch, watching TV, probably watching Sex and the City back then or something like that, yeah. Because I lived on my own, and I felt lonely quite a lot, and I was also very stressed. So I think those were two emotions that were really driving this. I'd come home from work, I had my own business, loads of staff that were always a pain in the arse, and I'd come home and sit down. Couldn't be bothered to make anything just for one person. I just start eating cereal, and it would just carry on all night, watching Sex and the City, eating cereal, sprinkling on the artificial sweetener, and sometimes there'd be a trip I'd go over to the shop if I'd run out of something, and but I literally wouldn't. I would feel out of control. But what it was, actually, I was switched off. I was disconnected. I was unconscious, and that's what was going. I was in my head. When our brain's in charge, we are kind of unconscious emotionally, right? Because we are thinking and doing, but we're not connecting to our emotions. So that's what I was doing. I was pushing down stress. I was pushing down loneliness, which is what I was feeling. And I was literally eating instead. I was eating it away, or eating your emotions, as some people say. And I just was literally, it's delicious. As I was eating it, I was thinking, oh, I love my cereal. Oh, it's really, really yummy. I'm just going to have one more bowl. And I'd always pour like a little bit into the bowl, because it didn't seem that much then. So psychologically, again, I wasn't having that much. But when the end of the night came and the whole massive big thing of cornflakes had disappeared, then 500 grams or whatever it was of it had gone, then I really kind of knew that it wasn't just a little bit I was eating. But it would just carry on and on. If I was in, that's what I'd be doing. And I knew this was the thing that was keeping me stuck, and I wasn't really that overweight, because my cycle, I would then, after that had happened, probably just before I went to bed or when I woke up the next morning, I start to feel guilty. I start to feel like really upset with myself, really annoyed with myself, really frustrated. Why have I done that again? What is wrong with me? Why have I done that again? And that would be the guilt. So the emotions that are driving the eating are stress and loneliness. The next morning, the emotion is guilt. So what does guilt do? Well, it can do two things. Obviously, it makes you feel pretty shitty. So guilt is not a nice emotion. It's not one we want to feel. So it can just literally drive you to eat more, because when you don't want to feel emotion, you eat about it if you have that habit. So I could have been somebody that went straight again to the cereal or whatever it was that I just carried on. Thought, oh well, I've messed up now, so I might as well just carry on. And but the guilt actually drove another action for me. I would actually go mental with exercise, and I would feel so guilty, and I'd be pushing myself, right, that's it, I'm going to run to work. I'd get my backpack on, and I'd run the 4 miles to work, and get to work, and I'd be looking obsessively on the way to work, thinking, what am I going to do at lunchtime? I'm going to go, and I'd go to the gym at lunchtime, and then I'd go something on the way home, just to burn off every calorie that I'd eaten. I was obsessed with burning off every single calorie I'd eaten, and then by the time I got home, again, I was stressed and lonely, and the cycle would start again. So that was a daily cycle. So that it could happen that way, but other times, if it was a weekend, for example, sometimes at the weekend I would be eating like that on the Friday night. It might not always be cereal, it might be something else. I just overeat and overeat a lot because I'd be sat on my own. And then the next day, Saturday morning, I might go to the gym and and then I'd do it again Saturday night. Or sometimes I'd go out and get drunk on a Saturday night and just kind of blot it all out that way. And then I would not be able to wouldn't feel like going to the gym the next day. And I would carry on eating the whole weekend. And then on Monday, like Sunday night, I'd be like, oh my God, what have I done? That was it. Sunday night was like, oh my God, I've done, and I'd be listing everything that I'd eaten, counting every single calorie, looking them all up, totting it all up in my head. Right, this is what I've got to do for the next 2 days. I have to run a marathon, then I have to do this, and I've got to do some weight training, I've got to do yoga, and I've got to, and I'd be like that, and that would be my head, what's going on in my head. So Sunday night was always a killer, and then the next few days I'd be literally, it was like purging through exercise. I would like literally burning it off, going a bit mental. So that was my cycle. And then I also, while I was doing the exercise and when I was in that exercise phase and losing weight, it would literally be about seven pounds sometimes that I would like be going up and down. But it wasn't really it wasn't the weight that was the problem. It was the mental processes going on up here that were making me feel a certain way. So thinking, oh no, what have I done, makes me feel guilty. That guilt then drove me to exercise. That exercise and that starving myself for days would be what then I would then feel starving, obviously, and then I'd just start binging again. And then I'd feel guilty again, and then I'd start exercising again, and then I'd be starving myself, and then I felt guilty again, or maybe I felt lonely, and I'd start eating again, and it would just be like that the whole time, up and down, up and down. So as you can see, the emotions are driving every action, and that is how human behaviour works, right? We have a thought. My thought was, oh God, what have I done? I've really fucked up, and I've like eaten all the cereal, I've eaten everything in the house, and then I'd be feeling guilty. So the thought is that would make me feel guilty. That would drive me to the exercise and the restriction, heavy restriction on food. That would end up me feeling absolutely terrible and starving, and then I'd start eating again, and then it would go. So it's the thoughts, then a feeling, then an action, and that creates a result of me gaining 7 pounds, and then I'd be going the opposite way, trying to lose that 7 pounds again, and it would keep going, restricting, binging, restricting, binging. And then it did change over time, yeah? So I kind of got more into yoga, and that helped me because it helped me emotionally. Because when you, as I said earlier, when you're thinking, when you're in your head, you're unconscious emotionally. When you're always thinking, your emotions can't do what they do. They're there to be felt, but you push them down with food, or you're just too busy, like busy, right? So yoga is because it's all about the breath work, right? And that slows down the thinking brain. It slows down the nervous system, and then after a class, you can feel like a huge wave of relief, or it will just kind of a release of emotions. I used to feel that, and that's so over time when I was doing more yoga, that is what helped. That's what worked for me to help me changed that cycle a bit. It broke the cycle a bit, but it took a few years. I now use the yoga techniques in my programs to help people break this cycle, okay? And it's a lot about breath work. It's a lot about being present with yourself and and being connected, okay? So connected to your emotions. So that's how I use yoga techniques. And it really, really is so effective. And yeah, but like I said, I get the hormones right first, and then I work on the emotions. The emotions is where it's at. If you're not feeling guilty, you're not going to be driving, or you're not going to be pushing yourself to burn it off, or you're not going to be feeling guilty and then just thinking F it and then eating more, right? So it either does one or the other. And it did both for me at intervals in my life. It was either driving me to over-exercise or driving me to eat more, because I just thought, oh, what's the point? What is the point? I'm bloody useless anyway. I can't ever stick to anything. I'm never going to solve it. I'm just going to struggle for the rest of my life. All of these thoughts are thoughts that I had, and they were like really extreme thoughts, aren't they? I am never going to be able to sort this out. I'm always going to struggle. I'm just effing useless. I can't stick to anything. There's something wrong with me. Those are the kind of thoughts. But take a step back. Take a kind of helicopter view here. Zoom out is what I say to my clients. Are you really useless? Are these thoughts facts? Are these thoughts facts? Because they are driving your emotions, which are creating actions which are not serving you, right? So that's my point. So if we can really work on the emotions, look at how you're feeling, and why you are repeating behaviour that you don't want, like continuing to overeat, snack at night, or go to the vending machine every day at 4 o'clock when you say you won't, and then you do it again and again and again. Whatever it is for you, there's an emotion driving that. And that is what I work on. I don't say, like most diet plans, I don't say, oh, just stop doing that at 4 o'clock, because that saying it doesn't mean you're going to do it. It doesn't mean if you're in a habit, you need to kind of work on the emotional side so that you can break the habit, and that's how it works, right? So for me, the yoga started it, and I started to realise that there was something going on emotionally for me, which made me feel better. And after a yoga class, I'd be like, I didn't feel like binge eating after a yoga class. I felt great. I felt like completely, conscious, not unconscious. I felt connected to myself. I felt in tune with my emotions. I felt amazing. Sometimes I felt like skipping down the road, or sometimes I was in tears. It was a big release and a relief. So I'm not saying yoga's a thing. Yoga's going to cure your. It doesn't cure it, right? But these techniques that I've taken from yoga, when I put them together with the hormone balancing, and getting the nutrition right, the hydration right, and all of the stuff that we do with the hormones, when we put it all together, this is the cure for yo-yo dieting, right? And that's what I've developed, and that's what my program's about, okay? So it's looking at the emotions you're feeling. Sometimes emotional eating isn't obvious, right? There were so many times when I was eating something and I was like, I have no idea why I'm eating this. I don't want it. Don't even really like it. And I'm still eating it. I'm just still picking. And I didn't realise that it was all emotional. I just had no idea. It was just really unconscious, as I said. So, and when you untangle this stuff, and I've got tons of tools that I teach my clients how to do this. And it really doesn't take very long either. Usually, 5 or 10 minutes a day. And then I coach my clients individually on this as well, and really, challenge their brains is what I do, and challenge. It's like, hey, how were you feeling when you did that? And we try and work out what it was that caused it. And sometimes there's like a real oh, right, that's why I'm doing it. I remember the moment that I realised it was guilt that was driving stuff for me. So it was just a huge aha moment, and something that I had been struggling with for years, and thinking, why can't I do this? Why haven't I got this figured out? I know what to do with the food. I know what to do with the exercise, but I'm still struggling. I'm struggling every time, up and down, up and down, up and down, and emotionally up and down as well. And it's it's soul destroying, and it's obsessive. Yeah, I was obsessively counting everything in my head, obsessively planning my exercise, getting down to the gym, going for it, and then sweating it all off, adding up the calories. Oh no, what have I done? Oh, I'm going to put on weight, and just obsessive. If you can relate to this, okay, as I said, put in the chat. I can send you an emotional eating technique. Okay, if you put in the chat divert, I'll send you one of my techniques, one of my tools, and you can have a go at this. Okay, and it's something. Yes, it is something different. You have to retrain yourself, and that takes a bit of time and effort to retrain yourself. But it's nowhere near the amount of effort and pain that I went through when I was forcing myself to go to the gym at 5 a.m. or run 5 miles before work in the dark and the cold, and then continuing with the exercise regime for the next 5 days so that I burnt off everything I'd eaten. It's nowhere near the pain of that. Excuse me, my friend, I need to get some water. So it's actually just thinking about things differently. Yeah, that's what it is. And so that you feel differently, and then you can act differently. And it's this area that is just totally ignored normally, and it's this area that's hugely effective. I have clients that they come to me, they want the weight loss, then they do the diet side of it, the food, they get the food, hydrate, drink loads of water, and do all of that, and then they're like, okay, and then a couple of weeks in, they're like, getting a bit bored with the food, getting a bit, they're not, but that's because they're thinking about it like a diet. They're following the rules, and in their head, what's happening is, it's like, I'm not allowed to eat that, I'm not allowed to eat that, and, Vicky she'll tell me off if I don't do this, and I don't, but that's the difference. So what I do with my clients is work on that mindset, that diet mentality, because that is what's causing the guilt, right? It's causing the guilt. I'm not allowed. Oh, I've eaten it. Oh my God, no, what am I going to do? And that's what causes the guilt. So we have to kind of completely shift the mindset around that. And that's another challenge. But it's actually not that difficult. And when my clients get it, the moment they get it, that's when they start to find it easy. Okay? The food is just the food. They do the food. They know how to do it now. I've taught them how to do the food. I've taught them how to eat, and I teach them a way to do it that doesn't feel restrictive or deprived. And you are still allowed to eat everything that you want to eat, but just not as often. So I never say you're not allowed to eat anything. Never, right? We try different things, and we create something that you love that you can stick to, and then when you work on the mindset and the emotions around it, you completely change your outlook. So it does feel totally different. It doesn't feel like, you don't feel guilt, you don't feel frustration and annoyance with yourself anymore. You give yourself a bloody break. And this is accept that you're human, and that you can't be perfect. Perfectionism will keep you stuck and keep you feeling guilty because you can't stick to it. So there's loads and loads to go into here. So I'm not going to go into all of that now. But so the main truth bomb today is, if you feel guilt around food, if you are eating when you're not hungry, you are diverting with food. Yes. So, and it's not about what diet you're on, how much exercise you're doing. It's not about that. It's about it's about the emotional side of it. Yes, you're not getting to your goal, or you're not staying at your goal because of your emotions, not because you're useless and you can't do it, and there's something wrong with you. It's not. It's because you're not addressing the emotional side, and that is literally, that's what makes it permanent. That's what helps you to change permanently and keep the weight off permanently. I've kept my weight off and stayed at the weight that I want to be now for 8 years, and I struggled for 20 years with this, right? And this is what that was for me. And I've got clients who have struggled for more than that, 30 years, 25 years, and they have just, as soon as they've got that the emotional side of it, they've got the hormone stuff right. That's the kind of, it's very, very interesting learning about your body and your hormones, and it becomes a bit of a self-discovery journey, and we get that right for you, for the individual. But then it's the emotional side, and when you finally understand why you're doing this, why you're repeating this behaviour, then you're able to correct it and you're able to literally fly. So I'm going to leave it on that high note. If you want more info, look, what I can offer you is a 20-minute call. I can do a call with you. I can send you a form before we do the call to assess you, and we can kind of assess you to see what it is for you that's keeping you stuck. If your if your cycle sounds similar to mine, or I've got, everyone's different, so I approach it individually. So if you want the form and the call, just post in the chat now. I'll post Divert in the chat, and I'll come back to everybody and see what you want. I'm going to send this out to everybody that requested it as a replay as well. So if you are watching the replay, please put #replay, and don't forget, if you want that technique, I've got a recorded technique that I can send you that will help you see what I mean, see how this works. Okay, so obviously the coaching that I give people is what makes it permanent, but it's good to have an idea of how I work before you consider working with me. So it's the individual coaching. And I had a client last night, for example, so I'm going on a bit now. I had a client last night text me say, I was feeling really hungry today, and I'm not sure why. I've been eating the same, and we have to work out whether that hunger is true hunger or whether it's emotional hunger. Emotional hunger starts in the head and goes to the belly. Yeah, true hunger starts in the belly and goes to the head. So they're very different, and we have to separate them. So I need to work that out with my client. I'm seeing her tomorrow. I offered her. I said, look, I can come and see you. Like, I can do a Zoom with you tomorrow morning immediately. Do you want to go through this so that you don't go through another day of feeling hungry and not sure? But she wasn't able to. So I'm meeting her tomorrow. So that's what I do. I'm there for my clients when they need me. If they need that coaching, that support, and we'll work through it together and untangle what it is. She's not sure why she wants to eat. She wants to pick, and I think it's emotional. So I don't think she's really hungry because she's following my plan. So there you go. That's an example of how it works. And so I will see her tomorrow, and we'll get to the bottom of it, and then we'll give her some support in the areas that she needs it, and so that she can kind of develop and grow basically emotionally. And then when you do that, the other stuff becomes easy. I promise you. That's how it works. So, leaving it there, comment in the chat, comment Divert, and I'll send you an email, DM, and I'll find out what you need, what it is that you want. The forms, the call, the emotional eating technique. All right, I'll leave it there. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend, everyone.